It's just bad economics. Look, if you've got an entire factory, let alone an entire planet, dedicated to making one thing, and then you need storage areas for that thing, and the storage areas need storage containers to hold the things in, you should design the containers so that the things don't spill out of them if you try to remove one. Again, basic economics. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we'll be taking a fully spoilery look at Skeleton Crew Season 1, Episode 7. One where we get some strange hints about what's going on at Atten. This is a well-written show. Things pop up in episode 6 and 7 that were introduced way back in episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they do so in a very natural way. This episode also cranks up the suspicions and by dropping subtle hints about what may or may not be going on at Atten, both textually and subtextually. It gives us answers to the thing like, why did the onyx cinder lock into an automatic landing pattern when it tried to land at Acheron? At the time, I just assumed it was something that the previous captain had programmed in that SM-33 didn't remember. But now we find out it was something entirely different. And I use that example of just a random little scene that is being woven together into the larger whole. And there are a lot of cool details like that in this episode. And it really goes to show how much better it makes a series when you plot it out and plan it ahead and make it less episodic and more overarching. Not that there isn't a place for episodic television, but this having a story that you want to tell from beginning to end and telling that story is a huge benefit. And that's about all I can say without getting into spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can use this time that I'm giving you to go check out the links below the video. Get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird. I Have the Data. A collection of short, absurd science fiction stories. Details. If I had to sum this episode up in one word, it would just be details, little details. How that when the onyx cinder was coming into at Acheron and SM-33 loses control of the ship for just a little bit, and he goes, oh, the ship when it went in to try to go into autopilot. We assume that something on the planet at Acheron, which was in a state of war, or possibly a program left in it from the previous captain, had caused that. But now we find out it's because the Onyx Cinder is a ship that was built in association with the, 8 or 9 gems of the Old Republic, all the planets that were founded with at Aten, just like at Acheron. We don't know if finding this ship is how the previous captain found at Acheron, therefore leading him to find at Aten. We don't know if he found the ship on at Acheron, but it does seem more likely that this ship isn't, as they say in the show, an Aten ship, but is more associated with either the network of the 8 or 9 planets or with one of the other planets. Because otherwise, if it had been trapped in Aten when Aten shut down, how did the captain get it? If it wasn't trapped in Aten and shut down, that suggests it's more linked between the planets rather than tied to any one planet. There is so much going on here in episode 7. You get to see Jod or Captain Silvo or Crimson Jack, whatever his name is, at his most ruthless and manipulative. Remember how last episode I said he had the capacity to forgive people who turned on him? Well, in this one we see he also has the capacity to do quite the opposite. Or rather, he calculates. He is entirely pragmatic in his associations. He's perfectly happy to be cheerful and friendly with somebody who turned on him previously, if it benefits him now and in the future. But once he sees that the person has crossed past usefulness, completely ruthless. On the other hand, he's still going out of his way to protect the children because they are not a completely ruthless foe that he'll have to deal with in the future. And he repeatedly reminds his pirate crew that they are valuable, that they need hostages. to the point that, you get the idea. He's not making excuses, but he's definitely kind of driving it home. We need to keep these kids alive. And then there's just that amazing subtlety in his reaction to seeing the treasure. You can see that there's some powerful emotion beyond greed there. Silvo is crazy enough, he's mad enough to actually think that this treasure is going to secure him that never being hungry again. And we still don't know whether these Old Republic credits have some inherent value in them. If they are made of a material that is inherently valuable, in which case he's just going to flood one market with them after another, or if they're only valuable because they're assumed to be rare, in which case he's going to have a very, very short span of time where he can get anything out of them. Because things that are only valuable because they are rare lose their value as soon as people figure out that you've got, 1,000 volts worth of them? I'm talking like I'm assuming you've watched the episode. So the pirate ships arrives in orbit over at An, and An is surrounded by a gas giant, or possibly even a star-sized cloud barrier. And no ship except the dedicated ships that fly between At-Aten, At-Akron, and the Old Republic emissaries can fly through. And that is why the previous captain got this ship and up-armored it, like he's said, like they saw in the recording a few episodes ago. And so the kids fly in on the Onyx Cinder, and they get tractored in by the pirate ship, and they try to bluff their way out of it. They've learned a thing or two from Jod, and that's when Jod ruthlessly, murders somebody, but tells his pirates to protect the kids. As the kids are trying to deal with this situation, that's when we get the thing that makes all my suspicions about the droids on At-Aten surge up again. We have been watching SM-33, and he has been completely tied to his protocols. He seems to have no free will, just blindly following this pirate code that's been programmed into him. But in this one, he obviously makes a choice of his own free will to side with the kids over Captain Silvo in a bit of contravenience of the pirate code, or rather he accepts the kids' code over the pirate code. Clearly, he just prefers the kids and wants to stay with them. And this got me thinking about those droids on At-Aten that seem to run everything. The humans have a certain level of control over them on an individual level, and a supervisor like Vern's mom seems to be able to get them to do what she wants them to do. And up till this point, I've been running on the assumption, after the first couple of episodes, that the droids were just blindly following orders. But I'd also been running on that assumption with Smee. So if Smee is capable of twisting or defying his orders in order to get what he actually wants, clearly having a will of his own, what if the supervisor is a droid? And what if the droids, or maybe not one individual droid, but the collective of droids, decided to twist the rules of At-Aten, and that's why At-Aten has remained concealed for so long? What if there is something more nefarious going on here than simply droids blindly following a system that became obsolete when the Old Republic fell? And then, all the big heavy stuff aside, there's just so many beautiful little details, like the landing pad being so overgrown. There were layers of turf and dirt ripping apart when the landing pad opened up. And how they would need to land the ship because the Onyx Cinder has an autopilot into At-Aten the same way the Onyx Cinder had an autopilot into At-Akron. And the only thing that didn't make sense in all these little details was when they get down to the planet, when Jod finally gets into the vault and sees his dream, that eternal treasure sitting there, he walks up to a crate of these Old Republic credits and he picks one up. And all the credits just start spilling out onto the floor through an opening in the crate. And that was a very poorly designed crate. If a person carefully lifting one item out of the stack causes the entire stack to collapse, dude, have a better system. Worked in factories. That's not the way to do it. But what did you think of episode 7, my wonderful viewers? Did you, especially of the scene when the parents are reunited with their children? That scene can be done poorly or well. And when it's done poorly, when it isn't earned properly, it can be cringe. I did not feel a single twinge of cringe when I watched that scene. But what about you? Do you think that this show earned the huggy family reunion scene? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Step into a world of science and of story, of laughter and of tears. Betty Adams has crafted entire worlds of science fiction and science fantasy adventure in her Humans Are Weird series and in her Dying Embers series. Be prepared to laugh, cry, and become absorbed. Check out her books at the links below the video.